Welcome everyone. This is Krishna Kumar hosting this webinar on behalf of Definedge Solutions. I hope you had a wonderful trading week. Any thoughts, comments that you want to share regarding the trading that happened during the week gone by? You're most welcome to do that. Any thoughts, observations, views, comments, anything? I hope it was a profitable week for you guys. Of course, if you're a intraday trader, I'm not too sure if there were enough opportunities to make money during the week. I think yesterday there was some opportunity, especially in Bank Nifty. But Nifty, I think, unless you were a positional trader, there weren't too many interesting opportunities, I believe. And it's quite strange and interesting in a way, isn't it? In the beginning part of 2018, if you people recall, we were talking about how Bank Nifty has become such a dormant kind of an animal, wherein it wasn't moving on either direction, and it was sort of a range bound kind of a move that we were used to. And in the last 2 3 months or so, it's been a role reversal of sorts. Bank Nifty has been more trending, and Nifty has sort of gotten into kind of a gap up and then do nothing kind of a mode actually. Anyone else who shares a similar viewpoint? Bank Nifty is turning out to be far more, what shall I say, tradable instrument as opposed to Nifty, especially from an intraday perspective. And of course, in the last month or so, Bank Nifty has been outperforming the Nifty. So obviously, it's a classic sign that there is a strong momentum in Bank Nifty in comparison to the Nifty. So any stocks that you guys identified that looks interesting? Any do we have any elite wave specialist or market profile expert in our gathering today? I'm just curious to find out what is the viewpoint of elite wave people with respect to Nifty, and of course market profile people as well, or any other stream. If we have somebody who is good at GAN or anything, anything other than point and figure, I'm really curious to understand what other streams of study are indicating with respect to the Nifty. Anyone? Do we have a homogeneous crowd wherein everyone just looks at point and figure chart and that's it? Elite wave count gets negated. Yeah, but see, the way elite wave counts should logically be used is that you must always have a preferred count and an alternate count, and you must obviously have very specific levels beyond which your preferred count gets invalidated and the alternate count takes over. So unless again you don't bring in that element of objectivity, elite wave is so very conducive to fit your bias. So, oh, okay. So someone says their friend actually told that Nifty will reach 11K by December. I wouldn't complain about that. And 11K is not that far, isn't it? We closed at what level did we close today? At 10,876. So we are talking about another, say, 130 odd points or 120 odd points, which is not a big deal, right? So we still have the entire month of December ahead of us. Okay, Karan says he doesn't use point and figure chart. So, is this your first webinar, Karan? So, what do you know about Acha? A third webinar, is it? So, did we not make a very convincing case for you to get interested in point and figure, Karan? Were you not, what shall I say? um, was your interest not uh, triggered, which would provoke you to pursue this stream? Not it. Okay, I don't know from where to study the patterns. A good starting point will be to go to Definedge.com, which is our website. So we have a lot of literature there, and also you can go to the YouTube channel. And of course, the best one-stop shop is Prashant's book. You can order the book from Amazon.in. It costs you 800 bucks, I think. So that is the best place to, because the book covers everything right from the beginning to the advanced stuff. So, and of course at the website and YouTube channel, you have lots of information which is lying scattered around. It's not what shall I say, strung together in a very logical manner. But if you manage to get hold of the book, then it will take you in the right logical order. Book name, come on, someone help me with the book name here. I don't recall the title offhand. Just go to Amazon.in and search for Prashant Shah. That's it. Or I can give you. Let me just search and give you the name of the book. Trading the Market the Point and Figure Way. That is the title of the book, Karan. Trading the Market Point and Figure Way. Right, Prashant Shah. If you just search for Prashant Shah, the first book or the first search result will be that 799 is the cost of the book. Okay. So this is our Nifty chart, 0.1% box size, closing price. So we have a buy signal, we have a invalidation of a high pole pattern. So everything looks bullish, right? Last week I was sounding a bit bearish, I distinctly remember. And this is what a week of price action can do. So things have turned upside down in a week, and we are, of course, there aren't any upside targets to really look at, because the upside targets have been achieved. So the only positive development this week is this pattern failure. The high pole pattern got invalidated this week when the price moved above the high of this column of X. So the next logical resistance will be at this anchor column high, somewhere around 11,000, will be a resistance. The box size we are using is 0.1 percentage, and reversal by default we use reversal value of 3. So we don't play around or we don't recommend playing around with the reversal box value until such time you gain proficiency in point and figure. It's better to stick to the default setting of 3. You can of course play around with the box size depending upon what kind of trader you are and what time frame you want to look at. You can play around with the box size. So for Nifty, based on daily data, we recommend zero point 0.1 as a nice place to begin with. And of course, if you look at a 0.25% box size, then probably we'll have some targets to look forward to. 11,170 seems to be a nice place um, to look at, because it also coincides with the resistance level that we were talking about in terms of the anchor column. And this is the conservative count at 11,170. So I think if the current scenario, if it were to sustain, then I think we might probably have what shall I say? We might take a stab at the 11K mark, or maybe just get slightly above it. And for all you know, we might probably move on to make new highs. We really don't know. But for the moment, I think things are looking good. And in 0.25%, of course, you have sell, buy, sell, buy. What is this? Double broadening, right? And we had a follow through to the double broadening. And again, even in 0.25%, you have this failure of high pole pattern. So things are looking good. See, for in most cases, especially if you're dealing with the daily chart, we recommend a log scale or a percentage based box size. If you're trading intraday, especially in Nifty or Bank Nifty, then you can go for a absolute point based box size. So for intraday Nifty futures, you can look at 5 point box size, and for Bank Nifty 10 point box size based on 1 minute closing price data. And if you're considering stock futures on an intraday basis, then you can look at 1 minute closing price. You can use 0.15% box size, 0.15%. These are no, on intraday basis. You have It's better to look at a 1 minute close only price, and 0.15% for stock futures. And for Nifty futures, you can use 5 points box size, and Bank Nifty you can use 10 points. Does that answer your question, Karan? Okay, so this is about it. And let's probably have a look at the RS matrix. Let's see what sectors, how the different sectors are faring in relation to the Nifty. Uh, can we set alerts on the chart? No, not on the chart, but you will know in advance where your buy signal will be triggered and where the stop loss has to be placed. So once the trade is triggered, you can automatically place the stop loss immediately. But for the trade trigger, suppose if the trigger happens at say 110, if the buy gets triggered at 110 for a particular stock, you can obviously set a alert in your broker terminal or elsewhere. And once the alert pops up, you can take the action that's required. But even otherwise, you can just if you know the level at which the buy signal or the sell signal is going to be triggered, you can place a limit order in the system, isn't it? So once the trade is triggered, you can immediately go ahead and place the stop loss order. Okay, so this is your uh, relative strength matrix. So this is for newcomers. This is nothing but we are looking at a ratio chart of the individual index versus the Nifty. So the maximum possible score, performance score is 8, and the worst possible score is -8. So okay, financial services and Nifty Bank, for all practical purposes, these two indices are basically one and the same. In financial services, I think the banking sector accounts for more than 60% of the weightage. So I wonder why they have two different indices here. And IT is not too very promising. Consumption is also sort of iffy, and FMCG nothing at all, isn't it? If you just ignore bank and financial services, the rest of the sectors, you don't see anything that really screams out at you, isn't it? If you look at the ranking score, again, Nifty Financial Services, Nifty Bank, PSU Bank is there. It takes the third slot, and of course you have FMCG. So most of the sectoral index, they have been beaten down, or they have been underperforming in relation to the Nifty in the recent fall, and they are just probably in a counter trend up move in the relative strength chart. So we'll have to just wait and watch if this counter trend up move translates into a buy signal. You don't see the indices? No, it should be there here. See, just click here and type NSE in the RS matrix. The last, what should I say, item in that menu, you can choose that. Just type NSE and choose the last item. That's it. And denominator is going to be Nifty, right? Okay. We don't have NSE indices sector. Why do you guys say that, dear? Anyone else having that kind of an issue? I'm not too sure if it is related to the software or the data package that you have subscribed to. But even then, even if you have taken a basic gold version EOD, the that's strange. In the RS matrix, don't you see this? These three objects listed there. If you just type NSE, don't you get to see these four indices there? Just check it out. If you don't have it, probably just talk to just talk to either Vinay or someone else at the help desk, and they should probably sort things out for you. Let us see what. Okay, see NSE all indices. It's going to list out everything. I'm not too sure if the sectoral index will be included here. I don't think so. Oh, okay. You have the sectoral index. Okay, but probably you can make do with the NSE all indices to begin with. Yeah. But obviously, I'm not interested in Nifty 100, Nifty 200, just Nifty inverse and all that stuff, right? Growth Select 15 or whatever, Nifty CPSC and all that stuff. I'm not interested in a lot of other stuffs here. I'm just trying to understand uh, or get an idea about which sector is in outperformance or underperformance. So I'm more interested in the sectoral index. So what you can do is use NSE all indices and just ignore the ones that are irrelevant to you, and just focus on. I think basically it has been structured in such a way that after Nifty SML 100, um, the entries below that are basically your sectoral index. So what you can do is just export it and then delete the ones that you are not interested in from in the Excel sheet. Okay. Okay, so let's get rid of this. Okay, someone said, can we go over to intraday trades in Nifty BNF and see how the patterns unfolded? Okay, I wonder how that is going to help, but we can definitely take a look. This is Bank Nifty, and okay, this is Bank Nifty, and the gray lines that you see, the vertical gray lines, they indicate the start of a new trading day. So this gray line indicates the start of today's trading, and the price action that you see to the right, it reflects or captures today's price action. So the price action from this gray line to this gray line, it relates to yesterday's trading and so on. So yesterday, if you notice, we had a gap up and then a small pullback, and we had a subsequent buy signal. So your long would have been triggered at 26,640, and your trailing stop loss would have been triggered towards the end of the day at 26,890 thereabouts. So the yesterday was such a stress-free kind of a trading day. Today it was such a boring day, isn't it? You had a sell opportunity below the moving average at 26,920, and trailing stop loss would have been triggered at 26,940. So you would have probably lost a few points there, and towards the end you got a buy signal, and again you would have probably ended up with a break even trade, or maybe minus 10 15 points kind of a trade. So nothing much here. So except for yesterday, if you notice, we didn't have on intraday basis, we didn't have much to cheer, even in Bank Nifty. This was when was this? This was 26th. 26th was a nice move we had on 26th, wherein you had a buy signal somewhere around 12:15, 12:20 thereabouts, and it gave you a nice trade. But the only thing is, if you had waited for follow up or a follow through buy signal, you never had that opportunity, because the buy signal was triggered at 26,140, and your stop loss would have been at 26,030, which would have meant what is it, 110 point kind of a stop loss there. And the other issue is that you would have probably taken this short trade, and your stop loss would have been triggered when the buy signal was hit. And I am not too sure how many of you would have been in the mindset to stop and reverse immediately. So the logical thought process there would have been to wait for a follow through buy signal, which never happened at all. So this column, it basically captures a 230 point move, not 230, 330 point move without any pullback at all. Okay, so this is Bank Nifty for you. Okay, let's get back to our main agenda, which is the discussion on what is it, on the ranking score. Can I presume that everyone is totally clear about the performance score? We have been talking about the performance score for the last 3 weeks, and we discussed about the performance score in the price chart as well as the relative strength chart. So is everyone clear about it? How the scores are assigned, and how to interpret those scores, and how to use it to shortlist candidates? If not, I have uploaded all the three videos. The last 3 weeks video, it is uploaded at Definedge.com site, and you can also go to the YouTube channel, and I have uploaded those videos in the YouTube channel also. So you can probably just go through the recording again, and if you still have any gray areas or questions or doubts, feel free to send me an email or ask a question in the Telegram channel. Either myself or someone else in the group will definitely answer. Any questions or any confusion you have with respect to performance score? Okay, if you have any questions or anything like that, just type it in. In the meanwhile, we will go ahead with the ranking score. So in the P and F matrix as well as the RS matrix, suppose if I run this P and F matrix, you have in the output, you can see the performance score as well as the ranking score, isn't it? So we have been focusing our attention on these four entries here, or five entries here, the four box sizes and the cumulative score. So we were focusing on the performance score all along. So from this week and maybe for next week, and I think ranking score, we can wrap it up either today, or maybe it will spill over to next week. Let's see how it goes. So we are now going to focus on the ranking score. So we are going to focus on these five elements here. Okay. So I just hope that you guys are fairly proficient in terms of understanding and visualizing how a chart will be by looking at this score. Or if I show you a chart, you must be in a position to visualize what the performance score will be. Okay. So let's turn our attention or focus to this ranking score. Again, ranking score can be calculated on the individual price chart. So this is the price chart of ADF Foods. So we can calculate the ranking score on this price chart, or we can also calculate the ranking score for the ratio chart or the relative strength chart. So suppose if I plot ADF Foods, okay, uh, divided by Nifty, this is this is nothing different from the performance score. Last week I highlighted how performance score can be calculated for the individual price as well as the relative strength chart, isn't it? The logic remains the same. Only thing here is that we are looking at the ratio chart, and we are going to use the same logic and decide what the ranking score is going to be. Otherwise it's basically the same. Any questions, guys? So we will just go ahead and talk about how the ranking scores are basically calculated. Any questions until now? Okay, wonderful. So what we will do is we will probably just for Nifty 50 we will probably run this matrix and then head to so I hope these slides sound familiar to you. This is the same file that we have been using for for the last 3 weeks basically. So this is the broad pictorial representation of what the matrix feature is all about. So we have performance matrix, ranking matrix. So performance matrix can be calculated on the price chart as well as the relative strength chart. Same deal here. The ranking matrix or the ranking score can be calculated on the price chart as well as the relative strength chart. So in the last 3 weeks, we were talking about how the scores are given for the performance matrix. So we had discussed at length about the various possible scores: +2, +1, -1, and -2. Hope you guys remember all this, isn't it? So yeah, we were talking about all these things last week, right? And this is of course the setup. We spent a lot of time on the setup as well, what we mean by setup and stuff like that. So let's go to ranking scores. Okay, as far as the ranking score is concerned, we just have to pay our attention to a couple of things. That's it. Whenever you open a chart, you look at the last column on the chart and ask yourself if the last column is a column of X or column of O. These are the only two possibilities, isn't it? There is no other possibility or confusion there. So if the last column is a column of X, then the ranking score is going to be a positive number. If the last column is a column of O, the ranking score is going to be a negative number. So what that positive or negative number is going to be depends on the formula, which we will talk about in a little while from now. In the next slide, I will give you the detailed explanation for calculating the ranking score. Okay, so basically, whether the score will be a positive number or a negative number, it depends on whether we are in a column of X or column of O. Is that clear? Any questions with respect to this slide? So we are not worried about what the trend is, whether a double top buy has been triggered, double bottom sell has been triggered. We are not worried about any of those aspects. The only two things we are worried about is the formula for calculating the value, and once we know the value, we'll have to decide whether the value is going to be a positive number or a negative number. So whether it will be a positive or a negative number depends on what the last column is. If the last column is column of X, the number is going to be a positive number. Otherwise, it's going to be a negative number. Is it clear? In performance score, if you recall, we were there were a lot of moving elements there, isn't it? Moving parts to it. uh, First we had to check whether the last triggered signal was a buy signal or a sell signal, and then we had to check whether we are at a column of X or O, and the third possibility was a consolidation. So we had three different combinations of possibilities there. But ranking score is fairly straightforward. There are only two basic elements you have to really worry about. One is what is the last column, whether it is X or O, and how many boxes are there in the last column. So once you know these two facts, then the formula for calculating the ranking score is very simple. Any questions? Okay, I'm curious to know how this is going to help us in our trading decision. Wonderful. That's I just hope by the end of this session or maybe next week, you get a very convincing answer to that, Akil. If you say that you've got the answer to that question, then I'll consider that I've done a good job of explaining the concepts. Right? Let's see. Okay, so let's talk about how to calculate the ranking scores. So you just have to count the number of boxes in the last column. So you don't have to physically count it. The software will automatically give you the number of boxes in the last column or any column. Once you place the cursor on the on a particular column, the software will give you the number of boxes in that particular column. So if you look at if you take any chart, so let us look at Asian Paints, right? So if I place my cursor here and look at the right hand side of your screen, so you have a lot of listings there, isn't it? So if you notice, you have the high price, low price, high date, low date, and the fifth item in that list is something called the count. So the count nothing is nothing but it indicates the number of boxes in the particular column. So if I place the cursor here, it says that the count is 4, which basically means there are four boxes of O in this particular column. So if I place the cursor here, if you notice it says 4, and if I place it here, the reading is 6, which basically means there are 6x in this column, right? So the formula is going to be count the number of boxes in the last column. So in this example here, we have 6 entries, right? 6 boxes. 6 into the box size. The box size here is, what is the box size we have used? 0.25%, right? So 6 into 0.25, which will be 1.5, right? So the score is going to be plus 1.5 or minus 1.5. Is it going to be a positive number or a negative number? Come on, guys, quickly answer. If you were awake and attentive, you shouldn't have. It should be a positive number because we are in a column of x, isn't it? Right? Okay, wonderful. So is the logic clear now? You have the formula, which is nothing but count the number of boxes in the last column multiplied by box size. And then if it is a positive number, sorry, if it is a column of x, the score is a positive number. If it is a column of o, score is a negative number. It's as simple as that. So here, okay, so if I change the box size, what happens to the score? Will the score become a larger number, a smaller number, or what will the score become? Now, Gaurav, what do you mean by depends on the box size? See, the question is in 0.25% box size, you have say a score of 1, which basically means you have 4 boxes of X in that column, right? So my question is, if I increase the box size to 1%, what impact will it have on the ranking score? KVR, that is an interesting answer. Probably KVR is the only person who has sort of clearly understood the concept. That's what I suspect. How many of you think that it's going to be the score is going to be a higher number than 0.25%? Just type in y if you believe that it's going to be a higher number. Exactly, KVR. That's right. Okay, come on, guys. Either you type Y or you type N. Uh, if you type N, it basically means that you don't believe that the score is going to be a higher number in 1% box size, higher score. If it is going, if you believe that the ranking score in the higher box size is going to be a bigger number, then you can type Y. Okay, Rajendra, you have to. If anyone types in N, you will have to tell me why you don't agree with that statement. I see two, three people. Rajendra, Gaurav. These are the two people who have chosen the option no or N. So you have to explain why. Because the number of boxes will be less. Okay. See, the correct answer is it can in the higher box sizes the score can be anything, right? It need not be a positive number at all. That is a possibility also, isn't it? It can be a negative number, isn't it? In 1% box size, if we are in a column of O, right, and in a 0.25% box size, if we have just seen a column reversal to a column of X, then we can have a score of 0.75 in the column of X in sorry in box size 0.25%, and in 1% boxes we can for all you know look at a negative number also there, isn't it? Right. So just by looking at the scores in 0.25% box size, we cannot come to any logical conclusion about the score or the possible score in the higher box sizes. It's is the logic clear, guys? So let's see if there are any such instances here. Okay, so this is look at BPCL, right? So what is the score going to be? The number of boxes here is 9. So what we will have to do is multiply 9 by 0.25, right? Which is going to give the answer is 2.25, and it's going to be a positive number. So the score in 0.25% box size is going to be plus 2.25. So if I change the box size to 1%, we are in a column of O here. So what is the score going to be here? Number of boxes is 4 multiplied by the box size, which is 1. The score is going to be minus 4, isn't it? It's going to be minus 4. So if I increase the box size to 3%, we are looking at 7 boxes here. So 7 into 3, 21 is going to be the ranking score in 3% box size. So are you guys clear about why a score in one particular box size need not necessarily give us any idea about, or it doesn't have any meaning unless you have a broader context? You cannot strictly extrapolate or second guess the scores in the higher box sizes. Okay. So if I were to okay, think about it logically. I have another question for you guys. In a three okay in a 1% box size in Asian Paints, I get a score of 16, right? So what does it mean basically? What can I infer with this information? I have given you the logic behind the formula calculation, right? I've told you how these numbers are arrived, and every one of you, you know what a point and figure chart looks like, and what does a column of X represent, column of O represent. Um, so, if you just probably apply your mind, you can easily come up with a very logical explanation about what to interpret from this number. For the sake of convenience, let us stick to 1% box size for the sake of calculation and practical angle. Let's just look at let us take the example of Asian Paints or Axis Bank, wherein the score is 16 in both the cases in 1% box size. So if someone were to tell you that this is what I have as a score in 1% box size for this particular stock, what can you immediately infer or conclude? So the basic, the most logical, without even blinking your eye, the most logical conclusion is the last column has 16 boxes of X in it, right? Correct. Price is in a column of X, and it has 16 boxes in it, and there hasn't been a three-column reversal in between, isn't it? So that is the basic um, assumption that, or conclusion that we can arrive at. Correct. Everyone, does anyone have any confusion about that? Hopefully not. Okay, fine. Let's for a moment look at the, say, let us take Asian Paints. Let's go to 1% box size. Let me just clear everything up. Okay. So if you see, the low of this column, it is 1158.39, right? So what is the value of the X, which is one box above the lowest value that we have? How are you going to calculate that? The lowest X in this box size is 1158.39, which the software gives you. What will be the value of the X which is right above that? It is 1% more, isn't it? It's not 1 rupee more, it is 1% more, correct? Because we are talking about a 1% box size, right? So if you have a calculator with you, you can calculate what the value of the next higher box is going to be. So what you'll have to do is, or if you open an Excel sheet, that will be much easier. So 1158.39, you calculate 1% of that and add it to 1158.39, right? So that is going to give you the box value of the second X in that column. So the third X is going to be again the value of second X plus 1% of it, right? So this is nothing but it is like compound interest, right? We talk about the compounding, isn't it? Correct. So basically, it will not be right to say that price has appreciated by 16% from in this column of X, because we are talking about compounding here, right? It's going to be way above 16%, isn't it? So if you look at it from 1158, so 1345 is the high of the column and 1158 is the low of the column. So basically, we have rallied by 16.2%, right? So roughly, what we can conclude is that by looking at the ranking score, what we can conclude, if you have a score of 16 in 1% box size, the first logical thing is price is in a column of X, and we have seen a non-stop action for 16 boxes, and the boxes being 1%, we have seen appreciation of 16% or more, right? If you're slightly weak in mathematics, you can play it safe by saying that we have registered a gain of more than 16%, right? Is that clear? So in the case of Cipla, it has a score of minus 24 in 3% box size, which basically means that it has seen a sharp fall of 24%, right? Yeah, we basically have, no, we don't have 72 boxes, isn't it? It's always going to be, number of boxes is going to be the score divided by the box size, isn't it? So we will have 8 boxes there, so 8 into 3, your score is 24. So to arrive at the number of boxes, what you will have to do is you have to divide the score by the box value. So it's the score is a negative number. So we will have 8 boxes of O with respect to Cipla in 3% box size. So if you go to, so what we have basically seen here is price falling from a high of 647 to a low of 526.61. So basically what we have seen is almost 18 and a half or 19% fall. See, again, you'll have to understand the logic here. In this case, we are talking about 3% from the previous boxes, not from point to point, right? So it's not so on the way down, the number is not going to give you the actual quantum of fall. It's going to be a slightly smaller number, not the actual of uh, just as in the way on the way up, the score is not going to give you the actual percentage gain recorded. Similarly, on the way down, it's not going to be the actual percentage fall, right? It's going to be the opposite. So let's get back to the presentation here. So hope you guys get the logic now, isn't it? So this is just a slide which gives you the calculation logic in a slightly greater detail. So we have four boxes in the last column, and the last column is a column of X. So depending upon what box size you're looking at, you'll have to multiply 4 by the box size. If it is a box size of 1%, the score is going to be a positive number of 4, and if it is a 0.25%, it's going to be a score of 1, and if it is a 3% box size, it's going to be 4 into 3, 12. So is it clear now? So for the sake of easy understanding, the performance score that we had discussed in the prior weeks, you can think about it as a proxy for the underlying trend in the particular stock, or in the relative strength chart, right? And the ranking scores that we are looking at, it can be taken as a proxy for the momentum. Does it make sense? Okay, now I have a question for you guys. Suppose, say, we have a score of 1 in the performance matrix. Okay, just listen to the question carefully. We have a score of 1 in the performance matrix, right? In the performance score is 1. What will be the ranking score? Obviously, okay, what will be the ranking score? Whether it is going to be a positive number or a negative number, and what is the actual score going to be? Okay, Akhil's question is, what is the box value? Let us, for argument's sake, let us settle for a box size of 1%. So on a 1% box size, the performance score is +1. My question is, in the ranking score, what is the score going to be? And will the score be a positive number or a negative number? I request everyone to answer this question. Whether it is right or wrong doesn't matter. Wonderful answer, Akash. That was the answer I was looking for. Akash Bansal. Nicely done. Okay, Niket's answer is also sort of acceptable. Nice, nice, Niket. Um, okay, I don't think. Okay, let me ask you another question. What will be the what is the likely minimum score? Okay, what is okay? Let's discuss the answer. I don't have the patience to wait for everyone to answer here. I'm running out of patience. Um, See, basically, we cannot second guess what the score is going to be, right? Let us deconstruct it logically. What does the score of one mean in the a performance score of one? What does it mean basically? When will we assign a score of +1 in the performance score? What is the last column going to be? If the score is 1, what is the last column going to be? Is it a column of O or X? Okay, it has to be a column of O, isn't it? Right? So if we are talking about a 1% box size, okay, before getting into that, in a point and figure chart, if we are talking about a three box reversal, in each column of X or O, what is the minimum number of entries that you can expect to see? At least I want everyone to answer this question. Hope you got the question, isn't it? If we are using a three box reversal, the question is, how many boxes minimum can we expect to see in a point and figure chart? It has to be three, isn't it? It will be three or above, correct? So if the getting back to our question, if the if the performance score is 1, your ranking score has to be minimum -3 or some number which is a bigger negative number than -3, correct? Because we are talking about a 1% box size, and as you all correctly answered, we basically need minimum, we will definitely have at least three boxes of O, or we can have more boxes of O. We don't know that. So unless we know how many boxes are there in the last column, we cannot calculate the ranking score. So if any one of you gave me a ranking score of -1 based on the performance score of 1, that is a wrong answer. The correct answer is that you just cannot second guess what the ranking score will be based on the performance score. What you can reasonably second guess is whether it is going to be a positive number or a negative number, and what could be the possible minimum score, right? So in this example, in 1% boxes, if the score was 1, obviously we will know, we can understand and visualize that price is in a column of O, and if it is in a column of O, minimum we need three boxes because we are talking about a three box reversal. So the score has to be -3 or a number which is worse than -3. Is it clear? right? Okay, fine. So if the score is two, again the same logic there, isn't it? If you're talking about a one box, sorry, 1% box size, it's going to be a positive number, and the minimum score is going to be three, or it can be a number higher than three, right? I hope you guys get the logic there. And if the score is minus one in the performance matrix, okay, what is the ranking score going to be? So, see, by asking these questions, I'm just trying to make you guys think and understand how these two scores can be used together. So, it's going to be a positive number, and the score is going to be three or above, right? So, if you guys have been attending this webinar for the last 2 3 months or so, um, we were I was constantly talking about the ranking score being very high in the 3% box size for the IT sector. I don't know if you guys recall that when the market was topping out somewhere in September beginning, middle, and towards the end, we were on a lot of occasions we were talking about the ranking score and how the ranking score in 3% box size for TCS, Infosys, and other stocks. If you look at the ranking score, it was showing some obscene number. I can we can open the chart and have a look. Do you guys recall that? So if I go to a 3% box size, see, look at this column of X. The low of this column of X was 1481.82, and the high is 2241.38, which basically means there has been a rally, a non-stop rally, and it's almost like more than 60 70% there, isn't it? So we have had as a close to 60 70% move in 3% boxes without any interruption at all, correct? And if you look at it, this is probably the lengthiest column of X that you can see in the recent past. Of course, you had a big monstrous one here, but if you notice the context where this column of X occurred, it was after a nice downtrend, right? We are talking about a 3% box size. Remember that. So we had a big fall, and then there was a trend reversal. So obviously, it's not surprising to see a big column of X in the early portion of a trend. But here, if you notice, we have already been in a very strong trend, and here we are talking about a column of X which is totally uninterrupted. And what is the score going to be for this column of X? There are totally 15 boxes there, isn't it? So 15 into 3, which is 45, right? So if the score is 45, the returns that the stock has generated is going to be a number which is definitely higher than 45, right? For a large cap stock, this is a big deal, isn't it? So what can we logically conclude from this? If the market weakness were to persist, these stocks are prime candidates which could see some mean reversion, isn't it? To paraphrase it in a different way, these are the stocks which are probably overbought, right? See, again, I'm not saying that the moment you see 15 boxes or 14 boxes or 10 boxes, it is a candidate which is overbought and you go ahead and sell the stock. I'm not saying that. What I'm trying to tell you is, the bigger the score in the higher box sizes, the greater the case that we can make for the stock being overbought, right? So it all depends on the context, what the sector has been doing, what is the market doing overall, and stuff like that. So we cannot blindly take any market data in isolation and come to any conclusion. So it depends on a lot of things. So when we were doing this webinar 2 3 months ago, I was week after week I was drawing attention to this fact that see in the rally from March low to August highs, the rally was driven by financial services, IT to some extent, and of course FMCG sector. So these were the only three sectors that were propelling the market to higher levels. So if you look at say Hindustan Unilever or maybe Britannia, look at the move there. It's much more aggressive than TCS, isn't it? This is Hindustan Unilever, again a large cap stock, from 820 to 1770, so more than double, right? And the score is going to be 20. We have 27 boxes, so 27 into 3, 81 is going to be the score. So imagine if stocks, heavy index heavyweights like Hindustan Unilever and TCS have seen such one-sided rally, wherein one stock has given more than 40 50% rally, and the other one has more than doubled without any pullback of 10% or 9%. So things cannot really continue at the same pace, isn't it? The moment these two stocks or sectors turn around, we are going to look at a very nasty correction, right? Which is what basically happened. From 11,600 odd, the Nifty came down crashing to 10,000, right? So what I'm trying to say here is, if you look at the ranking score, especially in the higher box sizes, 2% and 3%, if they show you a really big score there, then don't get carried away by it. And if the markets have also been rallying for quite a while, then be really cautious about taking fresh long positions in such stocks. Though those could be candidates wherein we could see some kind of a time or a price correction. It is a possibility. So what you can do is, the moment you see a very high score in these box sizes, you can see, for I can give you a very classic example. So the high of this column of X in Hindustan Unilever, the date is 17th of August. So what you can do is, you can watch the stock in the lower box sizes. So 17th of August is this column of X corresponds to the 3% box size, the high that we saw there. Okay. So the moment you see some bearish signals in the lower box sizes, then what you can do is, you can think about taking some profits. I'm not saying that you go ahead and short the stock or whatever. You can think in terms of a probable mean reversion, and you can think in terms of taking some profits, or maybe selling call options. If you have heavy long positions in cash, you can think about selling call options, if you know how to do that. Basically the idea is that there is a strong case for either a time or a price wise correction. So, Akhil, again, I don't want to generalize or give a blanket statement. So, Akhil is saying that the ranking score gives early signs of a correction. Not in all cases. As I told you, I'm repeating, it depends on a lot of other factors. See, for all you know, in a 3% box size, this column of X could have theoretically continued forever, isn't it? For whatever reason, if people were bullish on the FMCG sector and Hindustan Unilever, this could have continued forever. But the taller this column of X becomes, the more the chances of a correction becomes that much more higher. But we don't know when this column reversal is going to happen. And remember, a column reversal in a 3% box size basically means we are looking at a correction of 9%, right? It can be 9% or more. We don't know. So minimum it's going to be 9%. Do you get the logic here? So, which is what basically happened in Hindustan Unilever. If you look at it, price fell from the high of 1769. It came down to 1526. So close to some 14-15% kind of a fall. So what you can do is whenever you see this very high score in higher box sizes, you can drill down to a lower box size. So in this example, you can see that we had a triangle pattern and then a big anchor column. We had a sell signal, price fell below the moving average, and we also had a invalidation or a pattern failure in terms of a we had a bear trap which was invalidated. So a lot of negative things happening here, isn't it? So once you get a confirmation in the lower box size, you can at least think in terms of taking some profits, right? Suppose say if you are sitting on a big position, you could have probably thought in terms of exiting, say at least one third or half of your position, and think about getting buying the position back once the correction is over and you get a fresh buy signal, right? And the other important purpose that the ranking score serves is that if a particular stock or a sector is very bullish, the maximum score is going to be 8 in the performance matrix, right? It cannot be a number which is higher than that, isn't it? Right? So if things are bullish, everything will have a score of plus 8, and if things are really bearish, everything is going to get a score of minus 8, right? Then how are you going to pick and choose, isn't it? We have that classic dilemma there. Okay, so Somen's question is, do anchor columns act as support and resistance? um, Basically, rather than looking at them as support or resistance, the way I look at them is, if price gets there to a anchor column high or low, and if I see a trend reversal at that point, then I will take some action there. I use it more as a confirmatory signal. But logically, to give a very straightforward answer, yes, especially in a higher box size, if you have an anchor column, then it typically will act as a support or a resistance. But of course, in point and figure, we don't blindly take a position based on support or resistance, right? We always wait for a pattern retest, and then which basically means we are looking for a confirmatory signal there. If we are looking at a support, we want a double top buy to happen before we can take a long position there, right? um, Okay, can we? Akhil's question is: can we say that ranking score is a derivative of performance score, and trend decides the momentum? No, what I'm trying to say is you will have to use these two scores together. You cannot use them in isolation. So if I have a score of 8 here, right? It is the best possible configuration that we can think about, isn't it? Wherein the stock in the individual chart prices in a buy signal and a column of X across all box sizes. So what we can do is we can also take a look at the individual ranking score, and probably we can decide to look at the candidates where the score is slightly higher. So between Z Limited and Bajaj Finance, the performance score is 8 in both the cases. But if you look at the ranking score, Bajaj Finance has a slightly better ranking score, which basically means it has delivered better returns. Or to rephrase it, it basically means there is a lot more buying interest in Bajaj Finance than Z Limited. right? So it probably makes sense for you to focus on Bajaj Finance and spend slightly lesser time on time and energy on Z Limited. Does it make sense? Actually, this will make a lot more sense if you look at the RS matrix. Okay, I hope you got the gist of how to interpret this ranking score in conjunction with the performance score, isn't it? I hope there is no confusion there, right? So please explain TCS. Okay, so TCS, what are we looking at in TCS? In 1% and 2% box sizes, we have the best possible score that we can think of. In 3%, we are in a pullback, right? And we have basically seven boxes of O in 3% box size, and in 1%, sorry, in 0.25% boxes, we have a very small pullback. We are basically in an uptrend, but we have just completed a three box pullback in 0.25% box size. So today, in the opening, if you saw that IT is one of the top gainers, if the IT index is a top gainer in the first 10, 15, or 20 minutes, then immediately you can focus your attention on TCS, because this is the one which can trigger a buy signal very easily. Why I say that is, we have a score of one, which basically means that we are in a column of O. We are just in a pullback, but the main signal is a buy signal, right? I gather that intelligence from the score of 1 in point 2 in 0.25% box size. And if I look at the performance scores, the ranking score, it is the minimum score that we can think of, right? So we just have a three box reversal. That's it. So if we see a 1% move happening in TCS, it is going to trigger a buy signal. So in other words, last week, if you remember, I was talking about how you can focus on a score of 2 in 1% box size, and a score of ideally a score of 1 in 0.25% boxes, right? So once you have identified such candidates, you can then look at the lowest possible score in 0.25% box size, because if you choose this configuration, wherein the score is 2 in 1% and score is 1 in 0.25%, it it is going to be all the candidates that you have chosen, they are going to have a negative score here, right? Is that clear? So what you can do is, you can focus on those candidates where the ranking score is a smaller negative number, which basically means you have a smaller pullback, and the potential for triggering a trade is much higher. So if you have if the pullback is um, minus 0.75 or minus 1, those are the candidates which could be a potential super pattern, right? For a super pattern, what we need is a big anchor column followed by a pullback which is not more than four boxes, right? So if the ranking score is in a 0.25% boxes, if the ranking score is minus 0.75 or minus 1, right? And if there is an anchor column in the previous column of X, then those are going to be classical super pattern candidates. But with just performance score and ranking score, we cannot second guess whether the previous column is a anchor column or not. We cannot we cannot come to any meaningful conclusion about that. So only thing that you can think about is if the score is either minus 0.75 or minus 1, you can probably tell to yourself that these could be potential super pattern candidates. You can look at the chart, and if the previous column is a big anchor column, then you have a classic um, super pattern candidate, right? Is it clear? Okay, guys. What we will do is we will just stop the discussion here. Next week, what we will do is we will talk about, we will continue this discussion forward, and we will talk about how to use the ranking score in a relative strength matrix. Yeah, Akhil, you're right. So just think about it. So the best way to see what I am talking to you now is everything that I learned myself. So there is no textbook or anything that gives you this kind of information. You just try to basically first understand what is the logic behind assigning this course, and then ask yourself how can I use this information. That's it. So is there any way we can identify it is accumulation or not? I don't think any software can give you that information here. Of course, you have some indicators like on balance value, volume, and stuff like that. But on the face of it, I don't think TradePoint can give you that intelligence about whether it is accumulation or distribution. You will have to do your analysis and come to a conclusion. See, where TradePoint can help you is to identify momentum candidates either through the performance and ranking matrix, or you can run the scanner and find out which are the candidates where you have an anchor column, and then you can decide. To focus on those candidates. Okay, uh, with the ranking matrix score, we can also identify potential anchor columns, isn't it? Right? Uh, it should be doable, right? Is there any online course, Abhijit? We are planning to do online course very soon. What we have been doing until now is a 2 day event wherein we cover everything about point and figure in those 2 days. We are planning to do an online version or a webinar of the same event pretty soon. So we will make the announcements, and you can probably enroll. Okay, so before we wind up, using the ranking score, we can easily find out whether this candidate is a potential anchor column candidate, right? So, if suppose, for example, if the definition of an anchor column is minimum, if we have say 15 boxes, right? So for in a 1% box size, 15 into 1, if the score is anything above 15, those are typical cases of a anchor column, right? So you can shortlist those candidates, and the moment you see a score of 1 happening in those stocks, you can focus on those stocks. Or better still, what you can do is, when you shortlist candidates wherein the performance score is 2 and the ranking score is 1, you can probably pay attention to those candidates where the ranking score is relatively high in the 1% boxes, which basically means they are potential momentum candidates, and they are in a slight bit of a pullback in the 0.25% box size. What is the score of 77 in okay, this 77 is nothing but the sum total of the scores in the 4 different box sizes. That's it. So this total score of 77 doesn't convey anything by itself. What you'll have to do is look at the scores in the individual box size, and use it along with the performance score. That's where you'll get a holistic picture about what the stock is doing. So without even looking at the chart, I can tell you that UPL is in a very strong trend. There is a lot of buying interest because the score is +2 in the higher box sizes, the bigger box sizes. And if you look at the ranking score, again, it is a very decent enough high number. And in a lowest box size in 0.25%, we are in some kind of a consolidation. And if you look at it, we are in a column of X. This is an ideal candidate that I will want to focus on for if I'm an intraday trader. If I'm looking for long candidates, this is a candidate that will definitely be in my watch list for trading today, right? Because the higher time frames are very supportive for me, right? And in the lower time frame, I just have a four box reversal. Sorry, not even four box reversal. So we are in a column of X here, right? So we have four boxes in the last column in 0.25% box size. So we are on the verge of triggering a buy signal. But unfortunately, UPL probably did not give a long opportunity today. It was in the losers list, but that's how you interpret, and those that's how it becomes much more easier to shortlist the candidates. So when you have a score of 0, right, the ranking score can be either a positive number or a negative number, isn't it? If the performance score is 0 in any given box size, the ranking score, we cannot come to any meaningful conclusion about what the ranking score could be. It could be a positive number or a negative number, because we are talking about a triangle kind of a scenario there. If the performance score is 0, we are talking about a triangle scenario, right? So the last column in a triangle, we don't know what the last column is, isn't it? The last column can be X or O, and the performance score in both the cases is going to be 0. But looking at the ranking score, we can easily decide whether we are in a column of X or column of O. So in the case of ICICI Bank, the score is 0, but we have a positive score of 2.5, which basically means there is a triangle, and the last column is a column of X, and we have 10 boxes in that last column, right? Okay, guys, we have had an extended session today. Let's just stop here. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking for the rest of the day. So let's just stop right here, and we will continue the discussion next week. And we'll try to bring in the ranking score with respect to the relative strength chart, and we'll try to tie everything together.